Hey, it's Sylvan, and this is the Handpan Podcast. Really quick, let me set the stage for this episode. I was incredibly fortunate to discover the Hong through my cousin, David Charrier, in 2005. By that time, though, it was already nearly impossible to acquire this new age instrument from Switzerland. Yet, in 2007, 2 years later, I was able to acquire my own Hong, and it pretty much changed my life. Here was this 17-year-old French kid who had never been abroad, taking a gap year after high school to travel the world and make new international friends and play music. I moved to a new city, and during that first year, I went to Hangout UK, the first ever handpan gathering, located in England. There were about 25 people, and everyone's instrument was in D minor. That is where I met Spyros, today's guest on the podcast. The story you're about to hear could be out of a movie, and it reminds me of how impactful this instrument can be in someone's life. Spyros is funny and whimsical, but the lessons that he's learned and that he shares on this episode are invaluable. And they're going to make you rethink your relationship to the handpan. So here we go. Well, Spyros, my friend, it is a joy to have you on the Handpan Podcast. Welcome.
Hello, Sylvan. It's really great to be talking to you.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, it's been pretty much 10 years, I think, yes. The last time we met was September 2009.
Wow.
Yes, 2009, at the third hangout.
Time flies. It's crazy.
Time flies, yes.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to reconnect with you, especially because right now we're only 1 hour apart from each other in terms of time zones. So I'm going to jump around chronologically, but I want to start with this. What brings you to the US, and can you share what you've been up to for the past 5 years?
I am right now in Farmington, Missouri, and for all those who know a little bit more about the little community we are in, this is where the headquarters of Pantheon Steel are. I try to be here the last 5 years on once per year on an annual base, as I have been tuning for Pantheon Steel since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Making the halo is how can I say, it's a change is happening constantly. So Kyle is always trying to push the art form of tuning steel one step forward every day. So working in distance, because my workshop is in Athens, Greece.
Yeah.
It's very helpful for me to be visiting here and witnessing firsthand all the new things that we do.
Right, because Kyle from the beginning has always been at the forefront of innovation. I think the Halo, more than any other handpan, combines technology and engineering, not just craftsmanship, but there's a lot of high tech involved, right? Is that part of what you're learning to use or getting up to speed with?
If we can say that, like, every handpan has two stages of production. There is the manufacturing stage and there is the tuning stage. That's how I have, like, in my head, I'm dividing the process. So I don't have anything to do with manufacturing, although whenever I come here, I help with the tasks that might be needed, that we need to do. But when I'm back in Athens, I solely do tuning.
Okay.
I get halo material, I get shells, that are just have come out of the first production stage, the manufacturing stage, and then I tune them exactly the same way they are tuned here at the headquarters.
Like me, you were a part of the first small group of people who were just totally in love with this instrument, and we thought at the time that it was impossible to tune steel, right? We didn't understand it.
Yes, it was like that. We were thinking that it's impossible to make them. I think that there was a specific person or a couple who have been projecting that kind of a notion, if you want to characterize it as such, that there's only two people in the whole world who can do that and no one else.
Okay.
And I think that this is perhaps why we were all thinking, that, wow, this is impossible, like it just cannot happen. Then all of a sudden appears one guy who, because I think that Kyle Cox was the first person who presented, an alternative. Yes. I mean, we would call it another hang back then, but that very quickly changed, all the story.
Yeah, the terminology became sensitive very quickly.
The terminology became, very sensitive very quickly. But, like the moment you saw another instrument out there, immediately all that collapsed.
Right.
And people started realizing, hey, this can be achieved, actually.
And it was quite something to experience, because when Kyle started producing the Halo, there was just this dire need for this instrument. There was this craving for what could not be acquired.
So the first Halos came out 2009 or late 2008 or something like that. And I think that the time that Parnard stopped doing it was a little bit later. But yeah, anyways.
It's amazing how early Kyle started. Sometimes I think we forget that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 10 years. It's been 10 years.
It's been 10 years and more. I mean, it's 10 years since the Halo came out, but Kyle has been working on it before.
Right.
Like, it's not that one day he sat down and he just made it, like there was some R&D, research and development, before. And don't forget that Kyle was like he has been tuning steel pans for at least a decade before he started doing the Halo. Before, in the very early years, you could find a hang by walking into an instrument shop, same way like Andy was saying that he went into a shop and was sitting by the register. That must have been like amazing to experience. When I made it, when I was introduced to the instrument, that already was gone, and anyone who wanted to get one had to write a letter. But let's take it a little bit from the beginning. I was living in London, and I was working as a human resources assistant in, thankfully, university and not a very big company. Still, we had 8,000 people to manage. And at the same time, I was living in a squat. I was trying to experience best of both worlds. What happened is, like, at work, I wanted to excel and like get promotions and stuff like that. So I was asking my line managers to throw me stuff, like test me and see how well I can do. So they were just like throwing me workload with a bucket. And then when I was going home, home was a place that I was sharing with another 13 people between 5 bedrooms. Wow. And one toilet.
That's a stark juxtaposition.
I would go back home at 8 o'clock in the evening, prepare something to eat, clean, wash after myself, and then go to bed, wake up in the morning and do exactly the very same thing. And at the same time, I would see the people I was living with to be on much more laid back rhythms. They were not working as hard as I was. They had, of course, much less money, but like every time I saw them, they seemed to be a little bit happier than I. Of course, I could just like buy fancy stuff because, like I was getting a good salary. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the smile on your face. Now, the situation got a little bit more tensed because work was becoming even more stressful. And I also was volunteering in a lawyer association that was providing for free advisory service for people who were squatting. So I was finishing work and I was going there and I was getting into the law, how the law is working in England, and it was all too much. And I would go back home and I would experience what I was experiencing. Also, I was in a relationship that wasn't really working. It was a little bit, I don't know. I felt restricted from, or everything was pushing. Everything was pushing and there was no way out. So one day, actually one night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I was red, all red. I had some kind of like extreme eczema and anxiety attack. My fingers, I would look at them and they would be wrinkled as if I was like 80 years old. It was crazy. I couldn't recognize my own body.
Wow.
And yeah, that was a lot. And I had to take at least a week off from work to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And here is where the magic happens. So I quit my job in one day. I quit my relationship. I packed all my stuff and I left.
Wow.
With as much money I had saved in my pocket, and I went to a little community in Madeira Island, up in 1,500 meters. And we arrived there, and they're waiting for us with a lantern. It was night, like an oil lantern. And we're like, okay. So they show us where we were to sleep, and we say, hey, where can we charge our laptop? They looked at us as if we were like from another planet. And they said, hey, listen, basically here, we cultivate our own electricity. They would harvest solar energy to produce electricity that was used solely for communication purposes, to go online and like make any order and stuff like that. So they were like, if you want to watch a movie, here is a bookshelf full of books. Pick up a book and read one. If you want to see a movie and you don't like reading books, maybe you can create some kind of a theatrical play with people here. You have all the time in the world. If you want to listen to music, here is a guitar, here is a flute, just play. And I was like, excuse me, like electricity is giving us so many commodities. Great. But at the same time, if you listen to it, it also steals away from creativity, because like you might want to listen to music and instead of playing it, you press the play button and you listen to the music of another person. It was all mind-blowing. Yeah. It started like that. So when we did a little celebration for the summer solstice, so we did rehearse for a few days and we performed one song. So when the whole celebration was over, my teacher came to me and he said, do you know the hang? I was like, the what? There we are on a mountain in Madeira, in the middle of nowhere, in that context that I described. And there is this guy who is telling me about a new instrument that is made in Switzerland. And it looks like it looks like a spaceship, and it sounds like something you have never, ever heard before. And if you want to get it, you need to find their address and write them a letter, because they don't like to use instant communication. And I was like, I'm living it. I'm living the thing. It's like, there I am, and these people introduced me to this new way of thinking, and all of a sudden someone talks to me about an instrument that does that, and I was like, hey, it got very, 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 very interesting.
So the distribution model of the Hong at the time was perfectly aligned with that community's philosophy about approaching consumerism.
Yes. It was crazy, Sylvan. It was crazy. Like, you go there and they talk to you about all this new way of being, and like, they're just telling you that switching the light on and off is not something that you should take for granted. And all of a sudden, here I am, somebody telling me about an instrument that does this and that, and the people who make it are like this. And I was like, hey, this is just crazy. I have to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to follow it. When the whole thing ended and I was ready to go back to the other world, the real world, or the the regular life, I went back to England. I stayed with a friend, like a very, very good friend, and I tell him, hey, like, they told me about this instrument and we just have to find it. We have to look for it. So we start searching online, and this is 2007, and like YouTube is not so very popular. And like after 4 hours of searching, I ended up with an email address. One email address. It was hang@panart.ca, something like this. I don't remember. I found it in a forum somewhere. It wasn't even the Hang. The Hang forum did not exist at that time.
I know.
So I decided to write an email to this address because it was the only thing that I had. And immediately I get a response in 3 languages: English, French, and German.
Mm-hmm.
And they were thanking me for the interest in their creation and blah, blah, blah. And they were telling me that like their work is very, like detailed and it requires from them their complete attention. So they cannot be, they don't like to spend a lot of time with computers and responding to emails or phone calls and stuff. And if I wanted to get an instrument to express my interest in writing, I was writing that letter for a month and a half in my head. This is very awkward. You're asking me to write you a letter. You do not know me. I do not know you. So I felt I had to introduce myself a little bit. That's it. Okay. Then I would go to the post office and I give the letter to the person behind the counter and I kiss the envelope. And I give it to the person, and the person just is like looking at me with like, where are you from? Where did you just come from? And I'm like, excuse me, but this must be the most important letter I have ever written in my life so far. So please take it. Poop. Wow. And I give it to her.
By the way, that might be the secret to why you got a Hong and the rest of us did not. You kissed the letter. So you got a response?
I got a response, yes, but like I was in Athens when I sent my letter because I went back for the summer, in Greece. So the address to reply back was an English address. So when I go back home in England, my friend comes and opens the door and he's holding a letter in his hand and he opened it, of course, and he's looking at me with a smile that was beyond the years. And I was like, yeah! So I take up the letter and I run upstairs to the living room. And what do I see? There was a person who had a Hang in our living room.
Whoa.
Yeah, like it's like I went there on a Monday or Tuesday. Who was it? It was Danny Cood.
Oh.
Danny Cood of Hang Massive. Back then there was no Hang Massive. There was no. Yeah, it was Danny Cood, and he was at the festival for the weekend, and my friends were there, and he was searching for a place to stay because he was crossing London, and he happened to meet my friend, and he told him that like, hey, you have a Hang, and my best mate just sent a letter, and he got a reply. So naturally, he came to our living room. So there I am. I am holding a letter that says, "Come and pick one." and I arrive at my living room, and there is already a guy there playing a hang. So, yeah, it was, I don't know, it was gravitational.
So when you returned from that co-op, you got back home in England and you got the letter. Did your life change from that point moving forward? Did you go back to the corporate world or did you pursue the arts, I guess?
No. So I wanted to follow that movement. I wanted to go and start a community with other people, or go and live in a community with other people. Mm-hmm. And then came the first big wall, like, hey, how are we going to do that? Because like, you want to go into a community and be part of it, and then one day the person who maybe has the land says, hey, sorry, my plans change, I need to sell the land, or we have created something very nice, but now I have to just take it to another direction. And, you know, like, maybe you have spent like 5 years of your life to create that system, self-autonomous system, and then you might find yourself losing it. So the only way to be safe that I can do that is to own a little piece of land. But like, do that 30 years ago, it was much easier, like cheaper. Try to buy a piece of land today. It's not that easy.
Right.
It's not that easy. Where are you going to find the money? And like, I had some money, like, to help me live the next 3 months, but I didn't have so much money to buy land. So there you have it. You have the hang, and it was described to me as an instrument that you go in the street and you play it, and people come and throw you money with a bucket. So I'm like, yes, this is the solution. Not only it's like coming to me in this synchronized moment of my life, it's like, this is it. I'm going to be using this instrument to go in the street and play music and earn money with the bucket. And I'm going to use this money to buy a little piece of land. And that was my plan. So, so I have the hang, and it's the first week that I have it, and I'm in London, and I decide to go to the south side of the river where there is a promenade and you can walk and stuff like that. And there's baskets there, and like, I'm going to go there and play. So I go there, I make my little sign, I take, you know, like my little hippie stuff, and I create a little area, you know, like a little square to play music. And I go there and I play music, and I made 20p in like an hour.
20 pounds in 1 hour.
20p, not pounds, 20p. That's the equivalent of like 30 euro cents.
Oh, that's really bad.
In an hour. Yes, that was really bad. And that was like 2007, not 2019, when, like, you know, everybody, the majority of people who see you playing in the street right now say, hey, I know that. This is like a space jam.
Yeah.
It was a day that nobody knew it, you know, like, and like, I made 20p in an hour, and that was crashing.
Oh.
Because I had expectations that, you know, like, hey, I'm going to be having this, and I'm going to go out there in the street, and people are going to be throwing money at my basket the same way like people were doing that in for David Svarup in that video in Amsterdam. He's playing, and like everybody comes and cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And it was a full head-on collision with the wall. First, because I had to deal with a broken expectation, because I thought that because I have this instrument, I will be making money. And the second is because I was there and I made 20p, and all of a sudden I had this thing telling me, hey, how are you going to live? Because you have money for the next 2 months. And I didn't want to go back to the corporate world whatsoever. So yeah, it was a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
And the first thing I understood is it's not. I mean, it's not the instrument. It's not the hang. I mean, the hang is the vehicle, but the vehicle to go from A to B, it needs the driver.
Mm.
Okay, so the hang, it's beautiful. Well, the handpan is beautiful, and it sounds amazing, and it's like such a wonderful thing. And yes, of course, but if you just leave it there, it does nothing. No, unless it is raining, and maybe if you leave your instrument on the rain, it plays music for you, and it's very, very beautiful. Everyone should do it. Everyone should do it at least once. Okay, just leave your instrument in the rain and listen to it. But that's it. If you want to do something, it's not that because you just have it. You need to be able to express yourself with it. And when I say express yourself with it, I'm not necessarily meaning that you have to be, like crazy techniques and super fast fingers and like 10 notes in a second and blah, blah, blah. No, you just have to learn how to communicate what you have inside of you to the people who will listen to you, whether it is on the street, whether it is in a room, whether it is basically anywhere you choose to take the instrument and play. It's not just because you have it and you have to, and that is for me the most important thing with the handpan. For me, it's not technique. Yes, the technique is nice, and of course, it's good to be able to produce many sounds and be able to do all these little things with your fingers and all these rhythms. But like again, this is technicality, and technicality can be achieved by anyone if they spend X amount of time doing that. But technicality doesn't show me the musician. Because if you and I, we train every day and we do the same technique, and you stand up and you play that technique, and I stand up and I play that technique, we see the manifestation of the technique. Okay, we see the technique. We don't see the person. So if it's all about technicality, it's very impressive. It's very satisfying to be able to do it. I understand it. I know it. But for me, it's another thing. The handpan is an instrument that is very expressive. Like even with a little touch, it can do something. So it's all about expression. And what I want to see from you is you. Naked. I want to see you there, naked, without anything in front of you to hide you from me. Be it a technique, be it like a performance of whatever, like anything fake. And you can see that. You can see it. I mean, we have so many performers in all the other styles of music. We have that. We have that. Of course, it's very natural to see it in our own community as well. But what is real cannot be of any lesser value. I cannot see techniques being more valuable than expression. This philosophy that this instrument is, however you play it, it sounds good. However you play it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no instance of making a harmonic mistake, because the instrument is a universe and it takes you on a journey to a specific direction. That's it. I have discovered freedom in the handpan after 10 years of playing it.
Wow.
Yeah, because like the moment you add, like I have the, so I get my hang and I want to play something and I have this melody in my head and I want to play it on the instrument, and it's missing a note. I don't have it. And it's a catastrophe because I want to complete this thing I have in me, and it's not happening. And you just have to understand that maybe that thing you had in your head was in your head. It was coming from the head. It wasn't coming from the soul, the spirit, the divine or the synchronicity, however you want to call it. It was more of a logical thing. I was singing a melody, and I said, okay, now after C comes an E. Oh, I don't have an E. What do? I want another one. I want another one.
So are you saying that we should approach the instrument differently?
This is a tricky question. I'm going to tell you only this thing. I think that everyone should approach this instrument in the way that will make that person be happier. If this means having 10 instruments around you and spend 3 weeks to find out where it is that you have to hit, and that makes you happy, observe. The word that I use is happy. It's not proud. I mean just pure happiness. For many years, in my case, and this is my personal story, I have been trying so hard to become better, faster, more, have more instruments. Imagine you want to have another instrument. It's 2007. Yeah, okay. And there's no one. Kyle doesn't exist. Yeah, I mean he does exist, but he doesn't exist as a maker of the Halo yet. Okay, so you want another instrument, and there you are. You have this amazing little thing into your living room. You are so lucky to have it because people are saying it's so difficult to get it, and you have it. And because it's missing a note, it's a disaster. It's a disaster because I want to be making this and I have only that. And how can I do that? And it's frustrating. It was frustrating because I was approaching it in such a way. And then what happens? Okay, I have another Halo. Wow, fantastic. So I put 2 together and I start playing. The first thing that happened to me was like a lot of pain in my back because you have one instrument at the front of you and one instrument on the left, and you need to have your left arm all the time extended or your right arm extended, or you jump from one to the other. And so all of a sudden, all the ergonomics of the instrument go to the garbage. There you have a super ergonomic thing that you can put it in your lap and your hands so easily rest on it. And all of a sudden you want 2, you want 3, you want 4, and you're like, yes, I can play, but like after 1 hour, I feel like I have been beaten up with is that good? I don't know. Does it make you happy? Well, it makes me happy. I have the instruments and I can play the things I have in my head, but like at the end, I'm tired. And I go to play, and it's not playing. It's practicing to play the same thing again and again and again and again. And what does that differ from playing a piano, a violin, a guitar, a whatever? It doesn't. So all I'm saying is, if that makes someone happy, of course, you can do anything you like. Right. Does it make you happy? If it makes you happy, for me, that's it, that's it. So after 10 years, I'm just trying to play with one. And it makes me feel good. The people who came up with the handpan art started with 8 noters, and then they went to 7. Okay. I don't think that they went to 7 notes because they wanted to work less and finish the instrument earlier and say, okay, I've done it in 2 hours quicker. There was a reason why pan art started from 8 and went to 7. And the reason was that if you have 7 notes in the tone circle and 1 note in the center, you have more space between each note, which means that you have less interferences, thus you have better quality of sound. Okay, and remember, it was all about the sound. And anyone who has forgotten it, I ask them again to go back to the start. Everything about the hang was the sound. It was the sound. It was, of course, how it looked. Okay, and it looks really cool. It's like a spaceship. Okay, but everything behind it was the sound. So what captivated everyone was how this instrument sang, and nothing else. So pan art went to 7, and 7 is very restrictive because you have only 7 notes. And when I was there at the Hang Bauhaus, I don't remember if Sabine was that who told me or if it was Felix, but they told me, you live in a planet. The planet has a definite, you cannot go beyond your planet. You have a circle that you are confined yourself in. The resources you have on this planet are finite. Mm-hmm. So you don't have infinite resources. You have that amount of water, that amount of trees, that amount of land you can cultivate. This is it. You live in a restricted situation. Okay. This is the hang. It has 7 notes. Okay. You cannot do anything more than that. Take it and create the infinity. So it's a bit contradictory, like create the infinity out of a restricted situation. And that is magic.
Any closing thoughts you'd want to share on what you're up to in the near future or any projects you're working on?
The biggest project of my life so far, I'm expecting, with my wife, we are expecting a child this May.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. We're very, very, very happy about it. It's like, this is an official announcement, I think. Oh. It's the first time that I openly say something about it. Yeah, so this is a very, very big project lying in front of us. So we'll see. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you, Spyros. Best wishes for your first child coming soon. Safe travels back to Greece. And I really hope that we can talk again soon. But thanks for being on the Handpan podcast.
Sylvain, thank you very much for hosting me. I'm looking forward to seeing you again, my friend, and play a little bit.
I know. Yeah. Can't wait. All right.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye. I'll just close this episode with this. This conversation with Spyros sparked my interest in the original and intentional design of the hong. To be honest, I hadn't thought too much about it until recently. This idea that pan art decided to go down from 8 to 7 noters because it would improve the sound. That uncompromised, magical, acoustic sound. So I'm going to dig up the old hong pamphlet and the book that pan art later published to go down that rabbit hole. If you want to be a part of that conversation, please join me on the Handpan Podcast community. I'll be posting my findings there. The Handpan Podcast community is a Facebook group for us to connect and to bounce ideas on the many themes we touch on through the podcast. As a reminder, you can also pick up merch at thehandpanpodcast.com. There are 3 amazing designs made by my friend Jeff Kane, who's a brilliant graphic designer and illustrator. The most popular one is a wacky illustration of a green alien playing the handpan. Thanks everyone who already ordered one. Your purchase helps support this ad-free podcast. And if you want to check out the merch, you can simply go to thehandpanpodcast.com and click merch. That's it for this episode of the Handpan Podcast. Thank you for listening and talk to you in the next one.